What if the very soul of Heartland, the one person who has carried us through love, loss, and triumph, were about to be taken from us forever? For nearly 2 decades, Amy Fleming has been the heart of the series, a beacon of strength, resilience, and unwavering love for family and horses alike. But now, an unthinkable storm is brewing. In a shocking and gut-wrenching twist, the season 19 finale may deliver the most devastating blow in Heartland history, the tragic death of Amy Fleming. Could this really be the end of her journey? Can the Bartlett Fleming family, or the fans who have followed her story for years, survive such a heartbreaking loss? The signs have been their subtle warnings, moments of foreshadowing, but no one was prepared for this. As the final moments of the season unfold, the stakes have never been higher, and the future of Heartland hangs in the balance. If Amy is truly gone, what comes next? How will those who loved her find the strength to go on? Prepare yourself for a finale that will shake you to your core, one that will leave you breathless, shattered, and questioning everything you thought you knew about Heartland. Because if Amy Fleming's story ends here, nothing will ever be the same again. The season started with a sense of optimism. Amy had just achieved a major breakthrough in her career, working with some of the most challenging horses she had ever encountered. The family was more united than ever, with everyone finding their own personal victories. Ty's memory continued to hang over them all, but Amy seemed to be finding a way to navigate life without him, growing stronger each day. As the season unfolded, an unsettling energy seeped into Heartland, subtle at first, like a whisper in the wind, but growing stronger with each passing day. What seemed like harmless coincidences, restless horses, fleeting glances of unease, soon wove together into something far more sinister. The ranch, once a sanctuary of peace, now felt like a storm brewing on the horizon, waiting to unleash its fury. Amy, the pillar of strength, carried the weight of it all. She pushed through the exhaustion, determined to honor Ty's legacy, yet an unshakable feeling gnawed at her. Was it just the pressure, or was something darker creeping into their lives? The horses sensed it first, their once graceful movements now tense and erratic, as if they could see what the others could not. But it wasn't just the animals. The people around her were changing. Lou's mind seemed elsewhere. Peter grew distant, and even Jack, always the unbreakable force, had fallen into an unusual silence, his gaze heavy with unspoken worries. Amy fought to hold it all together, refusing to let fear take root. Yet beneath the surface, something was shifting. And just beyond the horizon, an unseen danger was waiting, one that would test Heartland like never before. Then came the moment that would begin the countdown to the finale, a phone call in the middle of the night, urgent and unclear. Amy didn't recognize the voice on the other end, but the words sent a chill down her spine. "You need to come to the ranch now. Something's wrong. It's about Ty." Panic set in. She rushed out of bed and drove through the night, her mind racing with the possibilities. Was there an intruder on the ranch? Was someone trying to harm her family? Or worse, was there a threat to the legacy of Ty Borden that she couldn't protect? When Amy arrived, the ranch was eerily quiet. The horses were restless, and the barn door was ajar. It was clear that something had been disturbed. Inside, she found nothing but a single cryptic note pinned to the wall: "The past can't stay buried." Amy's heart pounded. This wasn't just a warning, it was a prelude to something far more sinister. A storm was brewing, one she couldn't see but could feel in every nerve of her being. The note echoed in her mind, its meaning elusive yet deeply unsettling. Was this a ghost from the past, resurfacing to haunt her? Or a dark omen of the chaos yet to come? The energy around Heartland had shifted, thick with an unspoken dread. Was it trying to warn her of an unspeakable tragedy on the horizon? Amy felt it slipping control, certainty, the very foundation she had fought to protect. Questions swirled like a relentless storm, but one thing was undeniable. She couldn't face this alone. Time was running out, and the truth lurked just beyond her grasp. The puzzle was forming, but the pieces were jagged, fragmented, some holding secrets too dangerous to uncover, and some carrying a threat more lethal than she dared imagine. The world of Heartland was no longer the safe haven it once was. Something was coming, and this time, nothing would ever be the same. Would she survive? As the days passed after the unsettling discovery in the barn, the tension at Heartland continued to grow. Amy's sleepless nights became more frequent, and her thoughts constantly returned to the cryptic message she had found. Who would want to send her such a threatening note? And why now? Despite the growing sense of unease, Amy did her best to keep things normal, working with the horses and trying to hold the family together. But with each passing day, the feeling of impending doom became harder to ignore. One morning, Amy received another call, this time from an unknown number. She hesitated, feeling the weight of dread pressing on her chest. When she picked up, the voice on the other end was distorted, as if coming through a voice changer. Amy Fleming, the voice said, cold and detached. You think you've gotten away from the past, but it's coming for you. The things you've buried will rise again, and this time there's no escaping it. The line went dead before Amy could respond, leaving an icy weight in her chest. A chill crept up her spine. What was this person threatening her with? And why did it feel so personal? No one in her life had given any sign of knowing anything about it, yet the unease gnawed at her. Was it a ghost from her past? A forgotten enemy lurking in the shadows? Or something far more sinister, something she hadn't even begun to unravel? The rest of the day passed in a restless blur, each moment laced with an unshakable unease. No matter where Amy went, the sensation of unseen eyes lingered, prickling at the edges of her awareness. The ranch, once her refuge, now felt foreign, its open fields suffocating, its familiar walls pressing in around her. Every rustling leaf, every distant creak of the stables sent a jolt through her spine. Was it paranoia, or was someone out there, watching, waiting? She wasn't alone in sensing the shift. Lou had noticed the change the way Amy threw herself into work, avoiding questions, dodging comfort. It wasn't like her. Jack saw it too. He had watched Amy battle storms before grief, heartbreak, loss, but this was different. The light in her eyes had dimmed, replaced by something that sent a chill through him. Fear. And that terrified him more than anything. That evening, restless and searching for clarity, Amy wandered down to the river, the one place that had always brought her peace. But tonight, even the rhythmic murmur of the water couldn't soothe her. A strange stillness hung in the air. Then, movement. A shadowy figure stood on the opposite bank, unmoving, deliberate. Her pulse thundered as she strained to see through the dim light. Just a trick of the mind or something real? Then, the figure stepped forward, its features coming into view. Amy's breath hitched. A wave of cold fear crashed over her as recognition dawned. She knew exactly who it was. It was someone she thought she had lost forever, someone she had never expected to see again. The figure was none other than Caleb, Ty's old friend, and someone who had been out of the picture for a while. Amy had always trusted Caleb, but seeing him now, standing in the dark, felt wrong. He didn't say a word at first, just watched her, his expression unreadable. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and heavy with unspoken emotion. I never thought I'd see you here again, Amy said, trying to steady her voice. What's going on, Caleb? Why are you here? Caleb took a deep breath, his eyes full of regret. Amy, there's something you don't know. Something I should have told you a long time ago. I didn't want to be the one to say it, but it's time. They're coming for you, and they're coming for the ranch. Amy's breath caught in her throat. Who? Who's coming for us?" Before Caleb could respond, the sound of tires screeching through the dirt road interrupted their conversation. Amy turned quickly, startled by the sudden noise. When she looked back at Caleb, he was gone, vanished into the night, as if he had never been there. Amy stood frozen, her mind racing, trying to piece together what had just happened. Had Caleb been trying to warn her? And if so, what exactly was he trying to protect her from? The message was clear, though there was a threat, and it was coming for her and for Heartland. The storm was no longer just a feeling in the air. It was real, and it was getting closer by the minute. The next morning, Amy sat down with Lou and Jack to try and make sense of everything. She told them about Caleb's warning and the unsettling phone call. Lou was immediately on edge, urging Amy to take the threat seriously. Jack, too, seemed unusually tense, as if the mention of danger had triggered something deep within him. "I don't like this," Jack said, his voice grave. "We've been through a lot together, but this feels different. We need to find out who's behind this, and fast." Amy knew Jack was right. There was no time left to hesitate. She couldn't ignore the warnings anymore. Something was coming, something big, and it threatened everything she loved. As the family gathered, a chilling realization settled over them. The fate of Heartland was hanging by a thread, and they had no idea just how deep this danger ran. But one thing was certain: if they didn't act now, it might be too late. Yet, even as they steeled themselves for the unknown, a cold dread gnawed at Amy's soul. The worst was still ahead. A storm was building, dark and relentless, its full force yet to be unleashed. And when it finally broke, there was no telling who, if anyone, would be left standing. Would Amy survive? Would Heartland endure? Or would everything she had fought for be swallowed whole by the shadows closing in? As she delved deeper into the mystery surrounding her mother's past, the tension at Heartland became unbearable. Cryptic warnings turned into chilling encounters. Unsettling disturbances became impossible to ignore. The threat wasn't just someone from the past resurfacing, it was something far darker, more dangerous, and terrifyingly personal. And Amy was about to discover just how much was at stake. The more Amy learned, the clearer it became that her mother's involvement with Oliver Rhodes wasn't just a fleeting chapter in the family's history. It was the keystone that had kept the entire story intact for all these years. It had been Marion's choices that had inadvertently created the environment that allowed Rhodes to slip through the cracks of the law. Now, after years of silence, Rhodes was resurfacing, and he wasn't just interested in settling old scores, he was determined to finish what had been started. Amy's newfound understanding of the past sent a cold shiver down her spine. If Rhodes had been waiting for the perfect moment to strike, then that moment had clearly arrived. But what was his endgame? Was he after Heartland itself? Or was his focus solely on Amy? The situation took a chilling turn when Amy unearthed something even more disturbing: a hidden link between Rhodes and a long-forgotten series of land disputes involving Heartland and the surrounding properties. Buried in old records were patterns of legal battles, backroom deals, and veiled threats, all pointing to Rhodes's shadowy business dealings. Heartland had never been just a ranch. It was a crucial piece of a much larger puzzle. And as much as Amy wanted to believe she was merely caught in the crossfire, the truth was undeniable: Heartland wasn't just in danger. It was the target. Her worst fears were confirmed when an unexpected visitor arrived at the ranch gates: Albert Rhodes, Oliver's estranged brother. A man shrouded in mystery, Albert had always stayed in the shadows, distant from the family's ranching business. But his sudden reappearance wasn't a coincidence. There was something unsettling about the way he carried himself: too quiet, too knowing. He spoke in riddles, his cryptic warnings laced with a knowledge Amy didn't understand. Yet one thing was clear: this battle wasn't just about land or legacy. It was about something far deeper, something that had been set in motion long before Amy had ever realized. And now, the past was coming for them. "You don't understand, Amy," Albert said, his voice low but filled with an edge of urgency. "Your mother thought she could escape from it, but there's no escaping the past. Rhodes is coming for everything she built. And it's not just the land he wants, it's the legacy. It's you." Amy was stunned. Her heart raced as the weight of Albert's words settled in. She had thought she could protect her family, her home. But now, it felt as though everything was unraveling. She couldn't shake the feeling that Rhodes had been manipulating things all along, laying the groundwork for his return and playing a long game. The pieces were finally falling into place, but the puzzle was bigger than she could have imagined. The next few days were a blur. Every corner of Heartland felt different, tense, fragile, as though a single wrong move could set off an explosion. Amy was more cautious than ever, watching her back at every turn, aware that something was closing in on her, something she couldn't outrun. The horses seemed restless, even the ones that had always been calm and steady. Every time Amy entered the stables, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, the hairs on the back of her neck standing up. It wasn't just paranoia. It was instinct. The danger was real. The most terrifying moment came when Amy was alone in the barn one night, trying to calm one of the more skittish horses when a shadow crossed the doorway. Amy froze. A voice called out softly from the dark. "Amy." She whipped around, heart pounding, to find a figure standing just inside the barn. The moonlight illuminated the face, and Amy's breath caught in her throat. It was Caleb. But something was wrong. His face was pale, his eyes wide with fear. His usual calm demeanor had vanished, replaced by a look of pure terror. Before she could speak, Caleb rushed toward her, grabbing her arms in desperation. "You have to listen to me," he said, his voice trembling. "It's not over. Rhodes, he's not done with you. He's going to destroy everything, starting with you." Amy was stunned. Caleb's urgency and fear were unlike anything she'd ever seen from him. The fact that he had come to her at this hour, knowing the risk of being caught, made it clear that something serious was going on. She tried to calm him down, to ask him what he meant, but Caleb was practically incoherent. Caleb broke off, glancing nervously toward the barn doors. "I can't explain it all right now, but you need to get out of here. Rhodes is planning something big, something that'll take everything from you. You have to leave. You're not safe here." Amy's mind raced as she processed Caleb's words. Everything they had been dealing with, the phone calls, the messages, the strange behavior from people around them, suddenly made sense. Rhodes wasn't just playing games. He was planning something far more dangerous, something that would completely destabilize Heartland. And it had everything to do with Amy. Before Amy could respond, Caleb backed away slowly, his eyes scanning the darkness. He turned and ran into the night, leaving Amy with more questions than answers. The next morning, an unshakable dread settled over Amy, heavier than ever. Something was coming, inevitable, unstoppable. She could feel it in her bones. Running was no longer an option, and neither was facing it alone. No matter how hard she tried to fight it, the truth was undeniable. She was caught in the crosshairs of a powerful enemy, one that had been closing in from the shadows for far too long. The stage was set for a confrontation that would decide the fate of Heartland. But a terrifying thought gnawed at her. What if she was already too late? What if the storm brewing on the horizon wasn't one she could weather, but one meant to tear everything apart? History had a way of repeating itself, and this time she might not be able to escape its grip. Every choice from this moment forward carried weight. One wrong move, and everything Heartland, her family, her legacy could be lost forever. The stakes had never been higher. As Amy looked out across the land that had been her home for so long, she realized that the real battle was just beginning. As the tension continued to mount, Amy realized that the time for hiding from the truth had long passed. Her world, which had always been grounded in the safety and familiarity of Heartland, was now on the brink of collapse. Every day brought new revelations, each one more terrifying than the last, and it became painfully clear that nothing was as it seemed. Amy's trust in the people around her, her family, her friends, even herself, was beginning to erode, and she was struggling to figure out where to turn. The sense of betrayal was overwhelming, but she had no choice but to keep moving forward. In the midst of all this chaos, Amy decided to confront the one person who had always been there for her, the person who might still hold the key to the answers she so desperately needed, Lou. They had been through thick and thin together, and if there was anyone who could help Amy make sense of everything, it was her sister. That evening, after another unsettling day spent trying to piece together the mystery of Oliver Rhodes and his sinister plans, Amy sat low down in the living room. The fire crackled in the hearth, but the warmth from the flames seemed to do little to ease the cold weight in the air. "I'm scared, Lo," Amy admitted, her voice shaking despite her best efforts to sound composed. "I don't know who I can trust anymore. I don't know what's real." Lou's eyes softened with concern as she reached for Amy's hands, squeezing them gently. "You don't have to go through this alone," she said, her voice steady but filled with quiet urgency. "We'll figure this out together. You know I've always got your back." But Amy wasn't so sure anymore. The deeper she dug into Rhodes's connection to Heartland, the more she realized that this wasn't just a fight to protect the ranch, it was a fight for her own survival. Rhodes had made one thing terrifyingly clear: this wasn't just about land or legacy. This was personal, and the storm that had been brewing for so long, it was about to break. Despite Lou's reassurances, doubt gnawed at Amy's mind. What if the people she trusted most were unknowingly entangled in the very history that had led to this moment? What if her family, her foundation, was part of the reason Rhodes had returned with vengeance in his heart? Taking a slow breath, Amy reached under the table and pulled out a weathered folder. Her fingers trembled as she placed it between them. "I found something." She flipped it open, spreading out old letters, legal documents, and faded photographs, evidence she had painstakingly gathered over the past few days. Lou's eyes darted across the pages, her expression shifting from curiosity to shock, then to something else entirely: fear. The truth was finally coming to light. But would they be ready for what it revealed? "It's all here," Amy continued. "Every legal battle, every dirty deal. Rhodes wasn't just after the land, he was after control. He wanted everything, and he wasn't afraid to do whatever it took to get it." Lou's face turned pale as she flipped through the papers. "Amy, these aren't just old business disputes. These are threats. These are people who weren't just involved in property battles, they were trying to bury each other. This could ruin everything." Amy nodded, her heart heavy with the truth. The darkness that had been lurking in Heartland's past had not only resurfaced, it had taken root. And Amy now had to confront it head on. "I can't protect Heartland alone, Lo. I can't even protect myself. If we don't do something, if we don't take action now, everything we've worked for could be lost." Lou met Amy's gaze, a mixture of concern and resolve in her eyes. "Then we do this together. We'll fight. We'll take back control." Amy wanted to believe her, but deep down, she knew that things were no longer simple. Rhodes wasn't just fighting for land, he was fighting for something much more dangerous: the power to break them. As the pieces of the puzzle clicked into place, the stakes were growing higher, and the danger wasn't just lurking in the shadows anymore. It was at their doorstep. The next morning, Amy and Lou made a choice: they weren't going to sit back and wait for disaster to strike. They reached out to every ally they could think of: Caleb, Jack, even the older ranch hands who had stood by the Fleming family for decades. The road ahead was uncertain, the battle daunting, but one thing was clear: they weren't going down without a fight. But just as they began to take control, the enemy reminded them who was really pulling the strings. A package arrived at Heartland's doorstep unmarked, no return address, its presence as ominous as the storm brewing on the horizon. Amy hesitated before peeling back the lid, a chill running down her spine. Inside, there was only one item: a photograph. Her photograph. It showed Amy standing alone in front of the barn, a look of determination in her eyes, an image she had no recollection of ever being taken. But it wasn't just the picture that sent a shiver through her. It was the message scrawled across the back in thick, bold black letters. This is only the beginning. The warning was clear. The game had started, and Amy was the one being hunted. Amy's stomach dropped as she stared at the photo. Whoever had sent it clearly knew she was taking action, and they weren't backing down. In fact, it seemed like they were daring her to make a move. "We can't wait any longer," Amy said, her voice tight with a mixture of fear and resolve. "It's time to confront this head-on. No more running. No more hiding." Lou nodded, but her eyes were filled with worry. What if this isn't just about roads? What if there's something bigger at play? Amy didn't know what to think anymore. The truth had become so tangled in lies, so twisted by hidden agendas, that it was nearly impossible to separate the past from the present. But one thing was clear: someone was willing to do anything to tear Heartland apart, and Amy was standing in the middle of it all. Share your thoughts in comments section and subscribe my channel for more Heartland updates.